Hi there, welcome back. Now if you want to do something a little bit fancier on your bag, you can see here that I have added a bit of a design here and done some quilting, and I'm going to show you how you make these. So first things first, you have got in your pattern this little piece. So you could make this out of cardboard or just leave it out of paper, and you're going to cut a whole lot of little pieces out of different colours. I think I cut some different colour ones out. Here they are. So different coloured ones, and you can join them together. So all you do to make these is you put right side to right side, and you are putting the wide side together. Just put a little finger crease there, okay? Grab a bit of tearaway, start sewing on the tearaway, and you are just straight stitching 1/4 of an inch from your fold line to your raw edge. So running your 1/4 inch foot along, and you do a whole lot, so it's called strip piecing. So right side to right side, fold line to raw edge. Okay, obviously some of these colours I'm not putting together, but some of them I will put together. So right side to right side. One of my very clever customers made a quilt, and she used these for bicycle wheels, and they looked amazing. But we didn't know this method, so we did it a bit harder. This is much easier. You're not having to worry about points because it's all in the way you stitch and the way you fold. So when you've got a whole lot together and you've chain pieced them, it's going to look like a clothesline. So all you do is you cut in between, preferably not up in the ear like I am, and you can clip off your corners. So just clip off your corners, not really close to your stitching. Now you can use your wonderful point turner, or you can make yourself a 5-inch square out of cardboard. So if you open this up like this and just finger press that open, or use your little pressing tool, then when you turn this through, that seam will be nice and flat. So you can turn it through, and you can use your point turner just to push that up and make sure this is nice and square. So if you make yourself a square and push it up, you can press it while it's in there. I'm just going to use this. Okay. And there I have one done. So simple, so simple. So remember, your point turner will help you get to a really nice point. Needs to go up a little bit more. That's better. And then when I'm ready, they're all ready, I still do press with the iron. Okay, so you can make as many as you like. Now to join them together, I'll just do another one to show you. So open it up, and from the wrong side, open, oh sorry, I'll go this way so you can see it. Open your seam and just press that seam like that, and then turn it through. Now use your finger, turn it through and press it. Okay, and then make sure it's nice and even, and give it a press with the iron. So make sure they are all exactly the same size before you start sewing them together. And then all you do, as you can see here, is you put right side to right side, and you can see that it matches perfectly, and you do a 1/4 inch seam from here, and you do want to secure that edge, and then you can sew straight off here. That edge doesn't need to be secured. So again, a bit of tearaway behind there if you're sewing right from the edge, because then you can start on the tearaway, and you can backstitch, make it strong, and then sew off the other end. So you do not have to use tearaway, I'm just showing you that you can. Alright, so tearaway is a wonderful product for things like this. So just tear it away and you've got it there, but you certainly don't need to use Tearaway. So then when you open up your seam, you have got a perfect finish. So what I like to do is just open up my seams on every single one and use my tool here. Okay, and that is how I made them. On your last one, however, you do need to fold in your seam 1/4 of an inch. So I'll just show you that. So fold in your last one 1/4 of an inch so that it all will match together. Okay, so the last seam on the edge on here is sewn in 1/4 of an inch. Now how I've stitched these on is I've top stitched them. I've just sat it directly on top of my work and I've top stitched them on with the same stitch I showed you that I use for the binding. So you could use the blanket stitch, I use the sew on binding stitch, and I have straight stitched this edge, right? Then I decided I really like to finish it off with a nice bright blue stitch. So I'm going to put on my number 12 weight, my number 12 weight Oracle thread. I've got my 90 needle in, so it's got a nice big eye, and I'm going to put it onto the same stitch that I used, which I have no idea which one it was, but I'll find it. On my machine it is stitch number 427, and I'm going to make sure I change my foot because that foot will never work because it's a straight stitch foot. So I'm going to put on my 1D foot with a jewel feed. So I'm going to tell my machine I've got a 1D foot on, and I'm going to thread up my Oracle 12 weight thread. Okay, now remember, if you're using a foot without an opening, you can just slide your needle down through and put your foot on. It's nice and easy. So what I want to do is I want to sew around this edge. So what I did, I got my duckbill scissors and I made sure that I had no excess fabric here. So I just got my duckbill scissors and I trimmed all the way back. I did not have it up in the ear, but I trimmed it all the way back here so that my fabric was nice and tidy. Okay, and I didn't have any excess threads. Okay. So cut all the threads off. I could probably do a slightly better. There we are, that's better. Okay, now I'm ready to stitch it. So obviously I wouldn't normally have it sewn together. So I'm going to start off here and I'm going to mirror image my work so that it's folding in the same, going in the same way. I am going to run the right hand needle across my raw edge. Make sure I've got those threads all out of the road. And I'm going to bring my stitch length a little bit closer so it's, no, I'm not doing that. A little bit closer so it's tighter. So it's on 6 length, 9 width. So I'm just going to run it along here and I can see the edge. So when you're going to start doing something like this, you need to lock it off at the beginning and lock it off at the end. Now I have got white thread in the bobbin, so I'm actually going to put my tension down a little bit so my underneath thread will not show up the top. So I'm going to push my lock off function. I'm going to lock off at the beginning and I'm going to let my machine start sewing. Oh, wait. So something jammed. Obviously I didn't do something right. Perfect time to stop. I'm going to push my machine. I'm not going to touch my needle. I'm going to take out my shuttle system, my bobbin, and my shuttle system. Do not turn the balance wheel until you've taken everything out of your machine and checked what you've done. See, no jam up. If you don't do that, you could end up with a real problem if you keep trying to sew. So I can see I've got a little bit, oh, there's, it's all right. I'll just take that thread away. I had a little bit of excess thread there. Just going to get rid of that. I'm going to put my shuttle back in. Make sure everything's in the right place. And put it all back together. So please do not keep sewing. This is the biggest thing, and I'm glad that's happened. So I can stress to you, do not keep sewing, and then you won't jam up your machine. I'm doing it by feel because I can't see under here. There we go. There we go. You can feel it magnetizes. I always take my bobbin thread out. Actually, I'm not going to have enough thread in there to finish that, so I'll get another bobbin. And seeing as I'm doing dark blue, I'll put my black bobbin in. So just make sure you've got enough bobbin in. Put your bobbin back in. And don't stop there. Re-thread your top just in case something's not right. So cut your thread, pull it out, and re-thread your top thread. And then you know that you've started off everything right. Okay? So this time I'm not going to do the knot because obviously that's too thick. With this thick thread, I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up. So the other way you can get your thread through your foot is to just thread it down from the top. Okay? So this time I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up to the top and not knot it off. So I'm going to push pattern begin. And I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up to the top before I start. Like that. Oh, short edge because I cut it. Bring my bobbin thread up to the top. There we are. Did I get it? Oh, yep, there it is. And push pattern begin. Right, I'm ready to go again. So now I'm not going to have a big knot there and it won't jam up. So just start sewing. And nice and slow. Now here's the secret. I'm going round an inside curve. So I can sew quite well going around an inside curve, but if you get to a point where you know you're going to be moving the stitching, you need to do 1 or 2 patterns. So I'm going to put it on pattern 2, so it's going to stop after 2 patterns. So I'm just going to sew, and it will stitch 2 patterns and stop. Now I'm going to turn it just a little bit. It's going to sew 2 patterns. I'm going to stop and see I'm just lifting and turning slightly. It's going to sew 2 patterns and stop. So this isn't a really sharp curve, so I don't have to do it singly. So just doing it 2 by 2 is going to work. And turn it up a little bit. Don't go too fast because this thread is very soft and it will shred. So just go nice and slow, but 2 by 2 works for this curve. I really like that stitch and I love the colour on there. It's a nice way to finish off a raw edge. So pick a stitch that you love and just do the same on both sides of your bag. Now, or your box. Now you can see what I've done here. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I've actually joined my base seam. So normally these would be done separately. So just if you're wondering, because I sewed it together during Bernina Club. So normally I would not do that. And just keep going around till you've finished your whole design. And you can see that I've only quilted it very simply. So on this side, I'll turn it over. I've done an echo quilt around my points. And then I've just done 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of stitching underneath. So it's very, very simple. So I'll just finish after this one. and I'll show you the next step. So I'm not going to lock it off because I know that that thread's too thick. I'll just take that out. So now when you want to quilt it, you obviously have got your soft and stable on the back, and so I'm just going to use the foot width to quilt around the top here. So I will take my thread off and I'll put my normal black thread on. I'm not using a thick thread, just standard black thread, and I'm going back to straight sewing. But I always lengthen it out to a longer stitch length when I'm straight sewing, when I'm quilting, okay? Take your thread out from there. And if you want to, you can put back on your straight stitch foot with your jewel feed, or you can put your walking foot on for quilting. So I'm just putting back on my 97D, and I'm just going to echo around my points. So I'll just quickly show you how to do that, and I'm quilting through my whole design. All right. So all I'm going to do is start, did I go from the edge? No, I went from my point here. I'm running my foot, inside foot along the edge, and I am going to lock it off at the beginning. So I'm locking it off. Now, this is important. Use your needle stop down function, so your needle is stopped down every time you stop sewing, because what you're going to do is you're going to stitch. When you get up to your point, you're going to stop with your needle down. Now, when you turn your work, if your foot isn't in the right place, you have not gone far enough. So I need to do another stitch. And then when I turn, my foot's in exactly the right place. So it's the same distance from this edge. So I'm now going to sew to the bottom, and I'm going to stop 1/4 of an inch away from the base, and then I'm going to turn, and you can check that when you turn, your foot is in the same position. So going up, turn, go down, same position. Okay, and that's how you do your quilting. Going up, and you can tell straight away if you haven't done it right because it won't work. It's usually 2 stitches away from the end. And that is how you quilt it. Very simple. One more. So needle down and knee control is a must. Okay, I'm going to stop it there because I want to show you the sides. So, once you've done that, you're now going to sew your bag together. So you've got your base, you're going to sew your sides and sew across the base exactly like we did before. So the base has been stitched. I'm going to do a 1/2 inch here. So a 1/2 inch seam. I'm just going to do a long stitch obviously because I'll pull it out. So I'm just going to put on a longer stitch. And I'll do a 1/2 inch seam. And I would back stitch. And then you put the 2 pieces together. So this shows you clearly. You just put seam to seam. Make sure your seams are lovely and flat. Oops, pretend that's all stitched together. Actually, I'll just stitch that again because you won't be able to see it clearly, otherwise I'll back stitch. It's going to pull out anyway. Just make that a bit stronger for you to see. Seam to seam, and then open the seams out, and then a 1/2 inch seam across here. Oh, I know what I've forgotten. I'll show you it next. So a 1/2 inch seam across here. That was good that happened because I need to show you something. And that is how you do it. Now I'll show you on here. Can you see I've got some stitching lines, some straight stitching lines, and this meets exactly on the points, so that when you turn it through, when you turn this through here, you can see I've done some straight rows of stitching around here, okay, and around here. Nearly forgot to tell you that. So I'm going to show you on my piece of fabric here. So I'm making a fancy dancy box And this is the shape of your bag. So this is where we've cut out our corner. But on the right side of our fabric, we need to measure in. So lucky I remember this, that would have been terrible. You need to measure in 3.5 inches from the outside, on the right side, and draw, I'm just going to show you, and draw 3.5 inches from each edge, and you need to stitch through all your work. Okay, so I'm just showing you on the wrong side, but you do this on the right side. And you physically stitch a row of stitching. Okay, the reason why, that forms the shape of your bag. If you don't do that, you do not get that bag sitting flat. So you can see that I've done, very hard to tell, but I'll show you on there. So if this was the outside, there's my fold lines. Okay, so I'll show you on this bag. So this is my one I'm working on. This is the other side of this bag, and I'm using my scraps. Okay, so I need to measure this bag exactly the same as this bag. So if this is like here, I'll put some lines in here and I'll just draw this on so you can see. I've done some chalk lines as well. And, oh, I've already done across the top. So, I need to cut off, I'll just cut this off so I can show you really clearly. This is getting cut off to be exactly the same bag on the other side. I normally would use my cutter, but I just need to show you this. And this will be the top of my bag, because I need to match perfectly, and this will be the side of my bag, okay, the other side of my bag, and then I'll cut out my corners. I suppose I could cut it all now if you like, makes no difference. I might as well cut the whole bag because I've still got to keep stitching, but I've done the most of the stitching anyway. I'll cut out the corners, then I can show you clearly. Cut out the corners. And cut out the corners. Gosh, that would have been a major step that I had forgotten. So this is really, really important. So here's my one side of my bag, this is my other side of the bag, and I'm going to draw in my 3.5 inches. So 3.5 inches is there. I'll use this chalk so you can see it. And I need to draw a 3.5 inch strip there, a 3.5 inch strip here, and I have to stitch this. Really, oops, really important that you stitch this. Okay, I can still finish my stitching on there later on, but I need to stitch this. So you now can see clearly my yellow lines need to be sewn. Okay, and you do this on both sides before you sew it together. So this is going to be a bit of a fun bag. This bag is going to end up looking really fun, and I think this is my lining that I've made for it. So you will see these all finished. I'll post some photos of them. That goes in that way. That's going to have the lining, nice bright lining. I think I might put the same binding on the top. So they are quite a fun bag to make, and they'll be fun finished. Oops. Right, so you want to match a colour thread that's going to blend. Okay, so all I'm going to do is straight stitch that with a grey thread. So I happen to have remembered grey thread. Okay, so all I'm going to do is a straight stitch, and I put my straight stitch on 3 length. Okay, and put, oh, it doesn't matter what's in the bobbin. So I'm just going to put grey on the top and straight stitch that, and that's what you must do for the shape of your bag. Okay, so when I made the bag, you can see most of my stitching was done just on Tearaway, and all I've done is I've quilted a couple of little pieces just to hold it together and done my row of stitching. Okay, and this is going to make a fun bag. Actually, this one's going to be made into a bag, not a box. So I'll just quickly straight stitch this to show you what you must do on each side of your bag so you get the shape. And that is how you make your bags or boxes, whichever you decide to make. They are real fun. And I've really enjoyed doing all my fun stitching on this particular one. So I'm just going to straight stitch down here. Got my jewel feet on. I've got my length on 3. And all you do is go through your soft and stable, through all your design. You don't even notice it's there, but it gives you the shape of your bag. Okay? Really important. One of the ladies didn't do it and her bag ended up a bit of an oval. So it's really, really important that you do this step. And this particular wool fabric, this was the scraps from our last class where I was just showing you bits and pieces, so I've decided to make it into a bag. Now once I've done that, all I do is I continue and I just hold all my work in place and go round it with a straight stitch, so when I sew it together I don't have any movement, so I just carry all the way around my bag with a straight stitch, and then I know that nothing's going to move when I sew it together. Okay? So there you go. So I have done my row of stitching, and that is held. I've done a couple of bits of quilting on it. That has held my bag together, and that will form the shape of my bag. Okay, so when this is finished I will show you, but I'm just having a bit of fun doing some stitching on it, and I've realized that's going to be underneath my bag and you won't see it, but so be it, because it was just scraps that I was utilizing up. So it's going to be a little bit of fun, so I might put another one of these over here and that will be on the side of my bag. Okay, so have a bit of fun. If nothing else, have a go at making these, or you can piece some fabrics together that you love, or you can use it plain. So yeah, have a bit of a go, and I think it's quite a fun thing to do on a winter's day, and I'm certainly enjoying making these. So I'll see you again next month. Happy stitching.